It's common knowledge that you're not supposed to bring a knife to a gunfight, but what if you did? Do you think you'll make it out alive? For me, I'm not so sure, but my Guardian has a great chance of surviving. At the start of Destiny 2's next season, swords are receiving a complete overhaul. Before that time comes, I want to flesh out 3 different sword builds, one for each class, and we're going to start with the Warlock. Although the Warlock typically favors a supportive playstyle, when you're using a sword, it's surprisingly easy for you to play aggressively thanks to the Attunement of Hunger, the Voidwalker's bottom branch. This subclass branch has access to the best health sustain abilities in the game. Feed the Void allows you to consume your grenade to restore all your health and grants you the Devour buff. Kills while Devour is active heal you. The Insatiable passive ability improves this effect further. Kills while Devour is active reset the duration of the buff and reduce the cooldown of your grenade. The Attunement of Hunger makes you unkillable as long as you're killing enemies. With a sword equipped and Devour active, you'll want to hack and slash indiscriminately. However, the toughest thing about a playstyle like this is finding your way into the fray. But you can mitigate some of that weakness with the Black Talon exotic sword. Its exotic trait Crow's Wings allows you to send out a ranged projectile that deals damage in a small radius around the point of impact. From here we need an exotic armor piece, and since I like to go big or go home, there's only one choice, Nezarec's Sin. Its exotic trait, Abyssal Extractors, causes void damage kills to grant a buff with the same name, which speeds up your ability recharge rate significantly. This buff's duration can be extended up to 20 seconds. Since the Black Talon deals void damage, it'll be very easy to have a consistent uptime on Abyssal Extractors, which means more grenades for kills, or for lunch. So, we've got a hyper-aggressive Warlock build with the bottom branch of the Voidwalker, the Attunement of Hunger, an exotic sword with ranged attacks, the Black Talon, and finally the Nezarec's Sin is giving us massive cooldown reduction. This combination is wild and reckless, and it's a lot of fun, but sometimes I like to take a more reserved approach to battle. Next up, we're going to talk about a sword build for the Hunter. Now, in order to make swords work for Hunters, we have to get around our biggest weakness. We don't have a lot of survivability, but we have invisibility. In the way of the Pathfinder, the bottom branch of the Night Stalker has the best invisibility options. Its melee ability, Vanish in Smoke, allows you to throw a smoke bomb at your feet and turns you and nearby allies invisible. While invisible, we can approach enemies without taking damage and position ourselves next to the toughest targets before attacking. Now, if we want to be a proper assassin, we need a sword with the right traits. I want something that increases my initial damage, so On Guard is the best way to go. After swapping to your sword, you gain a damage buff for a few seconds. Next, I want to improve my maneuverability in combat, and I'll do that with Assassin's Blade. Sword kills increase my damage and movement speed for a few seconds. From here, we can turn our attention to exotic armor. I want something that works well with the assassin theme, and there are a lot of choices for the Hunter, but my favorite right now is the Gemini Jester. The Gemini Jester's exotic trait Misdirection causes dodging to disorient nearby enemies, rendering them temporarily unable to fight back. Now let's break down the setup and strategy one more time. The Way of the Pathfinder allows us to stealth our way into combat with the Vanish in Smoke melee ability. Gambler's Dodge will allow us to reset our melee ability so we can use Vanish in Smoke again to make our way out. Our sword has the trait On Guard, so when we swap to it, we deal bonus damage, which will enable us to burst down tough enemies very quickly. And finally, the Gemini Jesters will give us crowd control for when things get a little bit too crazy. Titans are currently the only class in the game that have an exotic armor piece that's specifically designed to increase the effectiveness of swords, and it's very strong. The Stronghold exotic gloves have the trait Clenched Fist, and it completely changes how you play the game. Guarding no longer consumes ammo, you have increased movement speed while guarding, and taking damage immediately after raising your guard restores health. When all of these effects combine together, Destiny 2 feels a lot more like a hack and slash game like Sekiro than a first-person shooter, and that's awesome. When used correctly, Clenched Fist will make you nearly unkillable, but unlike with the Warlock, your survivability depends on how well you can defend yourself and then fight back. Because the Stronghold exotic makes my guard so powerful, I want to lean into that with the sword trait Counterattack. Guarding while receiving damage grants you a damage buff that lasts for 5 seconds. You can also use your guard to negate enemy knockback attacks and mitigate enemy melee attacks. If you're doing all of this, you won't be a DPS powerhouse, but you'll feel like a tank, and that's cool too. If you want to lean even more into your durability, you can play as the Sentinel's middle branch, the Code of the Commander. Your Void Detonators will give you incredible area damage, but also every time one of them explodes, you'll heal yourself and nearby allies. Finally, something important for all of these sword builds is the Protective Light Charged with Light mod. This mod consumes all of your stacks of Charged with Light to give you increased damage resistance when your health goes critical. To wrap things up, these sword builds were surprisingly more effective than I thought they were going to be, and I'm very happy about that. It also led to an interesting discovery. Although I still consider the sword an impractical weapon, it's unique in the Destiny 2 sandbox and brings a special identity out of whatever class is using it. My Warlock feels like a spacefaring warrior wizard. My Hunter is an edgy assassin, and my Titan is an unstoppable force and an immovable object that won't be put down by anything. And there we go, that's going to do it for the sword builds for today. Before we close out completely, I want to say a couple more things about these builds that didn't fit into the main presentation. On your armor, I 100% would recommend bringing ammo scavengers and ammo finders for your swords. Keeping your sword full of ammunition makes it feel significantly better, unlike some of the other heavy weapons in the game that are reserved for clearing out bosses and other strong enemies. You can reasonably use a sword to kill a bunch of red bars, and if ammo bricks are dropping like candy, it's going to be that much better for you. Also, I made a quick note of it at the end, but I want to make a note of it again. Protective Light is a fantastic mod, and it's going to make you feel a lot more durable. There are a lot of ways to interact with the Charged with Light system, but for Protective Light, I enjoy using the Taking Charge mod to gain my charges of light, combined with stacks on stacks and charged up to make my stack generation a little bit easier. Finally, my Titan and Hunter are both using swords that you can acquire from the Heroic Menagerie. My Titan was using the Throne-cleaver and my Hunter was using the Gold Tusk. If you don't feel like running the Heroic Menagerie or can't seem to find people to run it with you, then just use any old sword that you can find, but try to find one with a good perk and trait combination. If you are looking for Unguard, you can find that on pretty much every legendary sword in the game, but if you want something a bit more general purpose, then Relentless Strikes and Whirlwind Blade are fantastic options as well. With all of that said, we're going to wrap things up, but don't worry, there's plenty more Destiny 2 content coming in the future. I also want to dive into some other games as well, but there's not too much on my radar right now, so for now, it's going to be a lot of Destiny, but that's okay. Destiny is very fun. If you enjoyed this video and you'd like to support the channel more than you already do just by watching, liking, subscribing, and commenting, you can head over to patreon.com/iBluairJgR to become a patron. As always, the name of the game is Destiny 2, the name of the channel is iBluairJgR. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.